This is Bogart Man Radio.
Growing up in Alex, I mean, just down the road, I was just, normal kid. Just like, in our time in the 80s, we say, when we were like, going in, just before even I became a teenager, I mean, started playing the football at school, in primary school, and then started playing for a club. Everyone that comes from Alex will know, more about the history of Alex and know about, the LFA in Alex, with Ntate Mlepo, and actually at the time it was called AFA, and we used to just go play. There was a house there that was, in the stadium, at the stadium behind the house. That's where we started just playing. We used to call it Challenge.
Yeah.
So we used to play Challenge there. And so the challenge back then, we used to bet with different streets, exactly in 15. So and so from then played for a team called City Wanderers.
Yep.
And coached by a gentleman called Zizi. A whole lot of others, Fritz, Slolo. And that's how it all started.
Yeah, but what's young Tribula, man? I want to find out the type of human being O'Brien was. Growing up in a household probably of two parents. You let us know. But were you troublesome? Were you the quiet one? Were you the shy one? What type of a kid was Brian Baloyi?
Laid back. I always wanted to. What type? I was never the type to fight, but when the fight came, I would stand for my own. I would stand for my brothers, for my friends, but I was never the one that would start fights. And even at school, I mean, I was people would say quiet, but from growing up, I always said I'm not quiet, I'm reserved.
Yep.
And in a way, I'm very analytic, and I always like to analyze the situation, and so that's how I've always been. And most people will say, no, you're shy. But then I show people what I used to do when I was playing, and for me, so I had two different characters.
Yep.
And so off the field, I'm reserved, but until I get comfortable. So when I'm comfortable in a situation, when I'm comfortable with people, then I'm the one that jokes around. I'm the one who's lively and who's okwara everyone. And people that play with me will tell you I'm in camp around. So when I'm comfortable, I become myself. And that's the type of kid I was, and was never in trouble a lot.
Yep.
So it was always with my brother, before we got into soccer. I mean, like most kids in the township, we were part of Tusong, where they had all of these things,
yep.
So I used to play karate there, and then at Nobuhle Hall as well. So we were always just happy.
Yeah. There's a certain club when I went through, some of the stats, and this is probably in your teenage years, one of the biggest clubs in Alexandra, Alex United. Yeah. You're also part of it. Unfortunately, it doesn't produce the players like it used to. How did you start? I think probably maybe it was semi-professional for you, but how did you join Alex United? Because I think for me, with the players that they've produced, top quality players, and yourself, I think doesn't need any more saying. But how did you end up at Alex United rather?
So I never played for Alex United. So
yeah.
And so there's always that thing about that I played for Alex United. I mean, Alex United came into being long after I turned professional. But the thing is, so for a lot of people, or the people that played for Alex United, to associate me with Alex United was that part of the founders were people that owned the club that I used to play for. So in Alex, I played for City Wanderers. From City Wanderers, I played for So before we played for City 1, we played for Tatem Lepos Club, and then from there played for City Wanderers. From City Wanderers, I played for a club called Longhorn.
Yes. Balfour Park as well.
Yeah, Balfour was a bit later. You
Okay.
know. Yes, but I joined Balfour as a 12-year-old. But at that time, I'd already been playing, with this from 10, played for Longhorn.
Yep.
So Longhorn was owned by a gentleman called Obra Isaac. And a lot of people don't know that Kurushi Mphahlele played football and played in Alex. So,
The owner of Baroka.
Owner of Baroka. So his uncle owned a club called Longhorn in Alex.
Okay. All right.
And the club, back in those days, played in the 3rd division. Almost got into the 1st division that was called OK League. And Kurushi, when he so the old man was a manager at a restaurant called Longhorn in Sandton.
Yeah.
and he called his club Longhorn. And then what happened was, so he was the one in charge of waiters. So he got some kids from Alex, guys from Alex to be waiters, and he felt guys from Alex are lazy, they don't want to work. And he came from what's the village where Kurushi comes from in Limpopo?
Kampahlele. Yeah.
So he went back home and got guys to come. So how he did was he got them to come and work for him as waiters at
the restaurant.
At the restaurant, and then so he only got the guys that could play football.
Yeah.
So kind of, when you look at it in those terms, in that time, like we had kind of foreigners that coming and being part of the club, and a whole lot of guys that actually played with Kurushi at the club that he brought, that came with him or even before him.
Yep.
Work for him now at his company at Africa Meter Reading. And he was a good player. He was a winger. He was one of those players was a winger, more like your Joseph Ngake. Was running too much. Too much. Was fast.
Yeah.
And so I played for Longhorn, and then Bra Isaac's cousin started another club called Ajax Mates. And so what happened was there was a lot of us that were young players, and there was a whole lot of us. We were a group of the team that we grew up together. So now we were supposed to break into the first team.
Yep.
So guys in the first team were all of these guys that came from Longhorn from Kampahlele.
Yeah.
So Bra Isaac couldn't push us into the first team. So his cousin started another club and took all of us to start this other team. And Kurushi actually moved with us to Ajax Mates. And then we started building the first team, Longhorn, and all the other clubs. The City Wanderers, we used to have a very derby in Alex in those days was a club called so from City Wanderers there was a club that was born out of it, with Fritz Lolo and all of them, and that was called Formscaf.
Yep.
So the club was sponsored by Formscaf, and so they were called Formscaf. So the derby in those days was Formscaf and Ajax Mates. It was the big games. But okay, with Balfour Park, what happened was, I think back in the day, every kid in the township wanted to play in the suburbs.
Yep.
So one of the guys that pioneers that started this thing was Sheikh Kumar. He played for Wanderers.
Yeah, what a footballer he was.
So Sheikh's played for Wanderers, and then so back in those days, in the 80s, the team in the whole club, the team that becomes the team of the year, they would win. They would go on a trip overseas. So Sheikh's was the one going overseas.
Yep.
So every kid in Alex wanted now to play. So the second kid there's a guy now, he's a principal at Begilanga called Mabandla. Mabandla then went to Balfour Park. Balfour Park, in his first season, they went to England. So you can imagine now all of the kids playing in our clubs in the township. Now Sheikh's, Mabandla, when they come to play with us, they've got kit bags, soccer boots, track suits, all of this, they kitted up. So every kid now wanted, so that's how most of us with Lovers, with Alfred Peary, that's how all of us went to Balfour, to Vets, Highlands,
But for you speak about, those two clubs in Alexandra being a derby. Do you think that also where it taught you to be strong mentally and possibly preparing you for what would come in regards to you joining Chiefs?
Yeah, I mean, I played. So as a kid, I was very tall, and I started so playing in the township on Sundays. So mostly we'd play on Saturdays. So on Sundays, there was this place there in Lindust, just after Lindust, called Jewish.
Yep.
And there was grounds there just behind the hospital there, and people used to play, betting there. But it was guys from the homelands, guys from the hostels, big guys. So one of the guys that I played with, one of the guys that played for Longhorn had a team that he takes there. So he took me with, and at that time I was like 12, and I was playing with guys that are in their 20s. And that's one of the things that made me become strong.
Yeah.
From then, I mean, I started playing most of my life as a child. Even at Balfour, from 14, when I was 14, I was playing for the first team at Balfour. And
but tell me, bro, one thing that comes to mind when you're speaking is in relation to you being a goalkeeper. Did you always know that you wanted to be a goalkeeper? Was just something that subconsciously happened? How did that come about for you to become a goalkeeper?
Subconscious, but the guy that coached me at City Wanderers,
yep,
Brazidzi, was a goalkeeper. So, and when we started playing with most of the guys there, I was playing as a centre back, but it only lasted me for about 2 months.
Yeah.
He said, "No, you're a goalkeeper." I said, "No." So I had a fight with him. I resisted, but he was the one who pushed me to goalkeeping, because he was a goalkeeper and he saw something in me. Yeah.
And that's how it began.
That's how it began. But for a while, I played as a striker. I played as a goalkeeper. I mean, at Balfour Park, still in my teenage years, I played as a striker. I played as a goalkeeper. I was top goal scorer at Balfour for 2 years. Even for Southern Transvaal back then. I think from when I was 14, I knew that I would have turned professional as a striker or goalkeeper.
Well, there is a man, Brian Baloyi, our legend here, an absolute legend in his own right. We are going to take a short break in regards to, the conversation that you are having with him. I mean, the thing that he is doing as a goalkeeper. And there's another story that I think we also have to talk about in relation to Legs of Thunder, the love-hate relationship that they used to have. But we'll take that and more after the short break. And let's just take this song once again in relation to the legend that we have here with us in studio live here, Brian Baloyi. All right, I'm just going to leave the song in the background while we speak to one of the legends of the game, former Kaizer Chiefs, Mamelodi Sundowns goalkeeper Brian Baloyi, a man that has done so much for South African football, particularly at Kaizer Chiefs, where he played for 11 seasons. And I think undisputed number one Spider-Man. And then there was a Spider Kid, but we'll also talk about the Spider Kid. It is 25 minutes after 1 o'clock. He's tuned into the big chat with myself, SK Pasha, joined by legendary Brian Baloyi. Brian, we were speaking just before the break in regards to you possibly being, which position you'd come to play, and you explained how you became a goalkeeper. But now, I want to fast forward this to you joining arguably one of the best clubs in South Africa. Just tell us about how that move came about for you to join the Bafeni Glamour Boys.
Yeah, jeez. It happened so fast. And even today, I mean, a lot of people say or think that I came from Kaizer Chiefs, development program, but not really. And I'll explain it, and you'll see, and people can just make their decision on based on what I'm understanding the facts.
Yep.
And I know as well, a lot of times, a lot of people, they always cut my my career and my time at Chiefs. I was Chiefs 13 years.
Yep.
And I played 347 games. I was at Sundowns for 7 years. I played 118 games.
Yep.
So how I turned professional was I moved to Chiefs in 1990 in October.
Yep.
As a 16-year-old, And when I got there again was Sheikh's Kungani. Sheikh's at the time, and a gentleman called Caesar Mapalla. Caesar is a well-known coach now, one of the best youth coaches in the country, and so he was playing for the Kaizer Chiefs reserves and Sheikh's in 1990, and they used to go to school. They bebangena Seko Alexandra.
Yep.
And playing against them, I used to give them, hard time. I was playing for, my Ralochile. So playing against each other at high school, and then Sheikhs, found out that, they're looking for a reserve keeper for their reserve side. They had just one goalkeeper, the other just, been injured, and they were looking. And then he spoke to the gentleman called Vincent Williams, who was the team manager at Chiefs at the time, and the coach was Asin Tsweleng and Braraida Mufukeng.
Yep.
And then Doctor's father, the legend, late Pro Kumalo, was coaching the under 16. So what happened was played against. We had a school Wednesdays football. They sent the
School
scouts.
sports, was it?
Yeah.
Yep.
So they sent the scouts to come and watch. Played against the Sheikhs and them. We beat them. I saved this penalty.
Yeah.
So the guys said, no, you need to take this boy. Took me the next week, Tuesday. So they're training Tuesdays and Thursdays. Training all the way at El Stadium. And back in those days, myself and Sheikhs were taking and Caesar. We'd go on a taxi. We'd take 2 taxis, sometimes 3 taxis to get from Alex to get to Rockville. So when I get there the first day, Brapro asked, how old are you? I'm saying 16, and then I say 16. He says, no, go to the under 16s. I say, no, they said I must come to the reserve side. He says, I'm in charge. I'm telling you, go to the U16, go under 16s.
Yep.
So I'm standing there. I'm like, nah. And then Sheikhs says, no, I don't know, but I'll talk to Braraida and Bra Ace. They speak to him. He speaks to them. Bra Ace tries to get me there. Says, no, we look. He says, no, the boy must go there. Okay, I train with the under 16s. And Thursday, I don't go to training. So I'm like, if I'm going to play for under 16s, then I'd rather stay at Balfour and stay in Alex and play for under 16s.
Yeah.
So Thursday I don't go to training.
But were you for you to stay not to go to training? Was it a case of you being disappointed that why are they sending you to under 16s rather than the reserve side?
Yes, like I said, at the time I was used to, and at Balfour I was playing for the first team.
Yeah.
At school, high school, I'm playing for the first team. So at that time, I was like, I don't play with kids. So I looked at my age group as kids at the time. So I was like, no. Then what happened was on the Thursday, then Sheikhs comes to collect me and say, no, I'm not going. And they go to training. Then when he gets there, where's the boy now? He said he doesn't want to come. So that Bravi calls my mom, calls home, and then they say, where's the boy? I said, no. I told him, no, come back on Tuesday. The next week, Tuesday, I go.
Yep.
I get there, Bro says, no. I say, yeah. So he shows me Holter there. So the guy who played for the reserve team was called Holter. So she says, see that guy? That's the goalkeeper there. Who's some keeper, Lord? I look at him. I say, yes. So the old man says, hey, this boy, you're 16. I'm as old. He can't.
Yeah.
Who's some keeper? So I look at him. I say, yeah, no, I can take him out. He says, nah. He says, nah, I want to train you alone. So the old man takes me alone. Takes me through, so he does all the difficult things, and just I do them, it's not easy. So the old man, so he comes up with this exercise. He kneels on his knees.
Yep.
So he opens up his arms like this. So he says, I must come running. So when I get to him, so he does this. So I fall. So now, then after the first time, the second time again he does it. Then the third time he does it. Then
Yeah, flip flop like.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
He asked me when I said, when's that? Then it sends me again. Then I go, say, we find a
Yeah.
So from then on, so he tries to do stuff that he sees, and I was able to do all of those because we were doing karate, and I always knew how, to do flips and all of that.
Yep.
And so from then on, trained with him 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, he says, no. But at the time when I was training, so Ace Nzweleng is watching. It was in October. November, I started. So at that time, on Friday nights, we were playing in the mines. We'd go to Orkney, we'd go to Carltonville.
Yeah, and this was with the reserve side. Okay.
Yeah. And guys in the mines.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they took me there, played me one half, and from November, and then Walter was playing in December. I said, no, December they go on tournaments all around the country. So we go to mostly we went to Piet Retief, Kuruman. We'd go in the homelands, and in those tournaments we'd go with Sundowns and Cosmos.
Yep.
So it'd be Chiefs, Sundowns, and Cosmos.
Oh, those were the three professional sides.
Yeah.
Okay.
All their reserve teams.
Okay.
And then we'd play with the team from that area. So we'd play a
Top 4
tournament.
Yeah.
So that whole December, we won all those games, and I was man of the match. And from then on, I remember in January, Ace went to Chincha and said to him, I've found a gem for you. This is the future
Of your club.
Yeah. And by February, I was invited to come to train with the first team. By April, I signed. At 17, I signed with the first team.
Now that's where the story starts. Just turned 17, professional contract at Kaizer Chiefs. What goes through your mind? What are the emotions? Who do you tell?
My mom first, obviously. Anyway, because having to sign that, she had to sign.
Yes, guardian or parent, yeah.
Guardian, and so my mom, my brothers, my uncles, my family was supporting Pirates. So it was a difficult thing now to tell my uncles that, hey, now I'm playing for Chiefs. But yeah, it was just excited. And that by that time, Shakes had just broken into the first team.
Yep.
Caesar Mapala went to Cosmos and signed with Cosmos first team. But at that time, so at school football was very competitive, and we had this tournament called Super C.
Yep.
And Super C, it was kind of almost like provinces, but they would, like Gauteng at that time, Transvaal was divided into Eastern Transvaal, Southern Transvaal, Northern. So Tembisa and Alex, because they were a little bit smaller than Soweto and Pretoria, so they put us together.
Yeah.
So in our squad, Tembisa, Alex, guess who was in my team? Who was my teammate that I was playing with? Jerry Skosana.
That's where the love started.
Yeah, that's where our friendship started. And we till today. I mean, we work together for all with bets. I got into the company because of him. He was the first brand ambassador. So we played this tournament same year in June. School holidays, June, we go to Natal Midlands. And we play this tournament. In the tournament, I remember I broke my leg in the semi-final. And the guy that broke my leg played for Pirates. So Nels Braid, their team was strong, had about 6 of Pirates players.
Yep.
And Northern Transvaal, which was Pretoria, and them had almost all the Sundowns players. Soweto had all the Chiefs and Pirates players, and a bit of Cosmos. So Alex Tembisa had myself, Shakes Kungwani, Caesar Mapala,
Jerez
Kosana, Johannes Chili, used to play for Aces. Yeah, so there was the 5 of us. My older brother as well was playing for Cosmos. Was a striker. And so we won. We actually won the tournament twice in a row.
Yep.
But in that first one, I broke my leg in the semi-finals, and the guy who broke my leg his name was Ebenezer Tabet, and he broke my leg. I remember, and it was a clean break right in the middle of the shin, and I had only played one friendly game for the first team.
How long were you out for?
6 months. Actually, I was out for a year. So, because I was out for 6 months with the cast, and then for a whole 6 months with the cast, and then the next year
rehab as well.
92 rehab. Yeah, I started in the middle, close to maybe. It took me about a year because back then the league was from January to December.
Yeah.
And so that was the story. But I remember when I broke my leg, Jerry, my whole team, they were crying when they saw how this guy broke me. Even Jerry went to his back, keeping woke up. He was running after, wanted to kill this guy. Yeah. So the story, that's the story, and I always say to him, you might have scored against me, but you cried for me.
Now, I think one of the most interesting parts, and for me, as you already spoken about how you signed for the club at 17 in February, tell me about his signing on fee if it was there.
Jeez, no.
And second, being signing on fee, nothing.
No ways. Back then, my first salary was $800.
But was it not a lot? Was it just enough?
Yes, when you look at the living standards of back then and what players were earning, and as a young player, it was more like an apprentice. And this the reason they signed me at the time was so we had 2 goalkeepers, and so in '91, and the 2 goalkeepers was Wade du Plessis and William Shonga.
Cool cat. Yeah.
So now what happened was, in end of April. Wade du Plessis was getting married.
Okay.
But he had it in his contract that when he gets married, he's going. It doesn't matter whether they're playing or not. So we had a game.
Yep.
He's going to get married. So William Shong is the one who's going to play. He's on his own.
Yep.
And I was training with the first team already, but for almost 3 months. So the club, we had a couple of guys that were on trial. There's a guy who came from Amazulu that was on trial. And the club decided, at the time the coach was Jeff Butler. He said, no, I'm signing this young boy. And so that's how I got signed. And $800 was a lot of money back then. But I remember my whole salary used to go to my mom. But I loved music. Yeah. So one of the things that I used to do, I used to buy music. So at the time was when the CDs were coming in, and I loved music, and so I used to buy CDs and record them on the cassettes and sell them to taxi drivers. So when I was going to training, I would sell to taxi drivers. Yeah. And I started selling to the senior players. Fanny Madida, I used to watch his car. Fanny Madida, Trevor Mtimkulu, Brian Marty. Yep. Who else used to buy my music? Doctor used to he never wanted to pay me. He used to take my music. So most of the senior players, I would sell my music to them. But how I sold my music to them, I would watch their cars. When I'm watching their cars, if I get cassette, chrome, then so that's how. Great times.
But tell me, you are a youngster. You've got a couple of months now playing for the club or training with them. Were you not starstruck? And also, just tell me the couple of names that you trained with when you started, training that you trained with when you started playing for the club. And were you not starstruck by this? Because I think for me, that is, the names that you already. The coach Butler, one of the finest Englishmen, also coached in South Africa. You've got Dr. Kumalo as well. Some of the names that you know much better. And were you not starstruck by training with these guys?
Yes, when I first got there, I think the things that used to make things easier for players from the reserve side was that so some of the good players from the reserve side would train with the first team but not be signed. They
Okay.
would train.
Just for the experience.
And every second week, the reserve team would play a practice match against the first team, and we'd kick their ass. And that's how good the reserve side was. I mean, I'm talking about Tsepo Mulatedi, Sheikh Skungwani. There was a whole lot of others that later, signed after me, like George Shasha, the Tsepo Mulatedis, the so there was a whole lot of guys.
Yep.
Thabo Moki came later. And so really, I think for me, maybe the first month. But one of the people that really made things easier for me and for me to acclimatize quickly, but as well, like I said, people who always looked at me like as if I'm shy, but I had a big personality.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
So as a 16-year-old, I mean, at that time, that's the year that Chiefs won 5 trophies. 91. That was one of the best
seasons of the club.
Seasons of the club. They had Trevor Mtimkulu, Nziema Pike, they had Gatna Siale, Neil Tovey, Lucas Khadebe, Howard Freeze, who else? Wellington Manyati, Dr. Kumalo, Fanny Madita, Shane McGregor, Skaratin. So those are strikers that I was facing every day as a 16-year-old. But Fanny Madita had this thing that, when we used to do a lot of shooting practice, and he's used to scoring, and when he scores, it comes to him Zokshay.
Yeah.
So one of the people that started competing, and I would save and Zokshay Dangek, and I used to fight.
Yeah.
And so but I had acclimatized quickly into the team, and because we had a lot of senior players, and that made things easier for us to settle, and by then I was already used to playing, in big crowds from school. Alexandra Stadium, when you're playing against, say, Alex High or Minerva, be a full house, and taking 5,000-6,000 people. Then you playing in the mines, anywhere between 5,000 to 10,000 people on Friday night. George Koch, so we trained at George Koch, the first team. The hostel is here.
Yeah.
So almost 3 to 4 days, only one day would be the coach would close it. So all the other days, training, there's almost 500 people watching every day. Training. The guys from the hostel, they just walk and sit there in the crowds, they watch.
It is 15 minutes before 2 o'clock. We tuned to Bogart Radio with myself, SK Pasha. We are speaking or having a chat, if you like, to Brian Baloyi, formerly of Kaizer Chiefs, Mamelodi Sundowns, Bafana as well, under 20s, under 23s. A man that has done a lot, as I said, from the top of the show. I think now we want to move on to your first derby with the club. You play up against Orlando Pirates. Also, I'm not sure if you guys were camping at the time, but just take us through possibly the date, what happened on the day or prior to the day, your feelings, and who did you also tell that and were you also told on match day or day prior that you'll be playing the derby?
Sorry. My first derby was 1993, and I was 19. And at the time, the club had signed a goalkeeper by the name of Potende Ishela.
Yeah.
And then I think at the time, soon after that, I think William Shonga decided to go to Pirates. Because now he was like sitting at, so it was Potende playing, I was the second, he was third. And the season started. In the middle of the season, was like, I think we were like about 8 games into the season.
Yep.
When I started playing, my debut was against Swallows, actually at Ellis Park, and we played 0-0. And from then I was now, establishing myself. So from there, from Swallows to the derby was like about 16 games away. And at the time, the league had 18 clubs. And when the derby came, the derby was my 17th game in that season.
Yeah.
And I remember, as much as when he's now playing, when the game, at that time the coach used to tell us in the morning. That's when yes, we used to camp. We used to camp at the hotel in town there called White House. Yeah. And so they would tell you in the morning. But obviously, yes, I had, goosebumps, shivers, all of those. And back in the day, my routine would be the day before the game, before I go to
Camp.
To camp, I would take time off, go out on my own, go to a park and sit, for a good 3-4 hours. And so when the derby came, I played, and about just 5 minutes before halftime in the first half, I considered a blunder actually. So Gavin, what was his name? Gavin Lane.
Yeah, the Pirates centre back.
Yeah, centre back. Had a ball, man, far from next to the centre line there.
Yeah.
So just play the ball into the box, a hopeless ball into the, so for people just to fight.
Yeah.
Put the ball there by penalty, around the penalty area, and I went for the ball. I bumped into Brian Martin. He's always the big guy. So bumped into each other as I had the ball. Bumped into me. Ball went out of my hands, went straight into the goal. And 1-0.
Yep.
Half time, the guys tried to, pep talk, tried to forget about it. But as a young man, first time playing in a derby, the stadium is full.
Yep.
And I couldn't recover from it. And second half, we came back, and then we lost the game 2-1. Couldn't come back. But this thing was, my head was spinning, was ringing. And I could just, I couldn't just get my head away from it, and it disturbed me. And I was dropped. Dropped for the rest of the season. Then only 94 again. That's when I started playing again. When a new coach came in, by the name of Philip Trozia.
Yeah, that's when you started playing again. I think we've got 10 minutes, and there's a lot of questions that I also needed to ask you, but I think we'll just try to keep it brief from here on in. First and foremost, I think this is also interesting, and I think, in all honesty, I want us to go to the bag.
The bag.
I need you to go to the bag. Explain the story of the bag in all honesty.
And I still have it at home. I should have brought it if you told me so I can show it to the camera and people can see.
Yeah.
The story of the bag is just simple. So around those times, I started carrying my bag. I think in 97. That's when I started carrying the bag.
Yep.
97, 98. And how it came about was, at the time I used to see, goalkeepers in England carrying a bag, carrying a towel. And at that time, just after starting playing, being part of the, senior national team, and my agent was Glenn Pinkin, who was agent for some of the big players.
Yep.
So Lucas Radebe, Mark Fish, Andrea Renze, Sean Bartlett, Eric Tinkler, all these big players, and they were playing in Europe, in England. And I said, hey, I want that back. I said, no, when I go visit Lucas or Andre, I'll buy the bag for you and I'll bring you, nice gloves. And so he bought me the bag. And I looked as though it was just a glove bag. But I remember first time when I started carrying it, then people started wanting to know what's in the bag. And I used to I usually just have a spare pair of gloves in there and a bottle of water and a small towel. But then I started getting opposition always, but that's what then made me persistent and want to carry the bag.
Yeah.
And obviously it's because of almost every club in the PSL back then, even vets, were using African magic.
Yeah.
So so people so the opposition was always concerned now, what is in the bag? So they thought there is something.
Yeah.
To a point, some of them would tell me, no, they told us there's there's a snake, there's what, to a point where some of the opposition would send someone to take the bag away.
But did it affect you, Brian? Did it get you that people are now starting to think there's stuff not related to football?
No, I learned very quickly as a professional and that football is mental. And that football, for me, I knew that to get an upper hand on opposition, and that's what I used to do with penalties, was I need to get into your head. So when I saw that people are concerned about this, I know that this is something that when I get into the game,
Yep.
they don't even think about, they're thinking about the bag now.
Yeah.
So, his mind is off the game. And that's why even with penalties, I would always carry it, and some players believe that, say, no, they told us, when you're shooting penalties, with the side that you put the bag, we must not kick there.
Yeah.
Because even if we kick it there, even if you dive the other way, the ball is going to go out. All of these things. But it was fun. It was good fun.
Yeah. Your hairstyles, very, very colorful hairstyles. Manje Sosha Makipis. Why? Why did you do those colorful hairstyles that you made?
I started it as I remember, I started when I was doing my dreads and stuff. And I mean, in camp, with the national team, when you're in camp, they always give us, day off, you can go do your hair. And went to the guy that does my hair. I went with Thabo Moki, and he was dyeing his hair blonde. And I said, no, the guy said, I can do your dreads like that. I said, no, dreads blonde.
Yeah.
I said, no. And at that time, we were preparing for the Nations Cup. And I remember I said, nah, I don't think so. And went away, we were in camp. But a week before we were going to go to Burkina Faso, I decided, why not? So I did it. But again, for me, it was something that I did just to prove to myself that I'm not shy, that I can, be out there. And even my fashion sense back then, I mean, I used to just very colorful.
Yep.
But with the hairstyles as well, it started just as something, just playing around. But then it became something else. It was my trademark. And in some sort of way, I always wanted to be different.
Yeah. I think the last 5 minutes will belong to our listeners. I'll take through questions that they've sent me on Twitter. First and foremost, I think now it's generalizing, or rather, let's go back to Chiefs. When you left the club, and I think you grew to love Kaizer Chiefs with the performance that you put in, week out. When you left the club, I think you should explain it more or better than I can. Was it a good way that you left? And how did it make you feel that you've played at Chiefs for 13 years and you left the way that you left?
Okay, how do I put it quickly? And so obviously how I left, I didn't live in a good way. Later on in life, and when you look at it, I look at it both, from myself and the club, we could have done better with the negotiations, how they went. And even if I had to leave, we could have done it better, me leaving. But no regrets. I learned so much from that move. Helped me to grow as a person.
Yep.
And I think a lot of times, sometimes you become too comfortable when you're in a place too long.
Yep.
And I know at that time I was not really in a comfort zone, but I think if I had stayed and 1 year longer, it could have pushed me to get to a point where I was too comfortable. And the life lessons that I had because of the move that helped me to grow as a person, I don't think I would have had those if I had stayed, including being able to sit around the table, to sit, with President Petrus Motsepe, the relationship I had with him when I was at Sundowns, and my time there with, I learned a lot, and not only as a player, but as a person and administratively as well.
Yeah.
And later on, we patched and we buried our differences with the club, and that's why I was able to go back as a coach later.
Yep.
And then I left, and no hard feelings.
Absolutely. What's signing on for you at Mamelodi Sundowns and the salary?
It was good.
Yeah.
It was good. I mean, at the time, I was arguably one of the best paid players in the league.
Yeah.
And,
by far.
One of, because when Peter Ndlovu came in,
Yeah.
and, but this is what people don't understand, and again, I always say we all have opinions, and my reason for my move to Sundowns was not monetary.
Yep.
It was because of the respect that the club showed me in our negotiations, and including speaking to Dr. Petrus Motsepe and understanding the vision,
Yep.
what he wanted to build, and gave me assurance that he wants to build the club around me and a whole lot of other guys that are coming through, and I'm happy with the contribution I made to the club.
Absolutely. In closing, Brian, what are your thoughts on the state of Kaizer Chiefs in relation to Mamelodi Sundowns?
Again, I think when we criticizing the dominance of Sundowns, maybe people and supporters don't understand why. And for me, it's criticizing based on the good of South African football. And I say to people, I mean, if one club, it doesn't matter if it's Sundowns or anyone, if one club with more than 10 games to go, they are ahead with more than 20 points. I mean, really, there is no competition.
Yeah.
And for me, I think now I would say to other clubs, maybe it's time to stop complaining and look at what opportunities are there. How can you get closer to Sundowns? Sundowns is building an empire, and it doesn't matter how. And mind you, not only with money. I mean, you look at the support. And Patko Mafani said something over the weekend that, Sundowns is really building an empire. And when you look at the attendance at the game against Al Ahly, and they're building a culture. And that's what, for me, most clubs don't have. Forget about even what the players and the winning and all of this. Players are winning because they're happy. Players are winning because, as much as they know that they have to please the supporters, but they know going to the game, the supporters are going to be singing. Whereas, you look at Pirates, Chiefs, the supporters are as nervous as the players.
Yeah, yeah.
So supporters need to start thinking and do what the club is not doing. They mustn't wait for the club to say, okay, Sundowns is building a culture. Sundowns, they're building a culture that we used to see with Celtics. Celtics is still no more, but Celtic supporters are there. The culture is still there.
Yep.
So Pirates, Chiefs, and all the other clubs, they need to start building their own cultures, and that's what Sundowns is building, and that translates into results on the field, into not only the supporters being happy, the players every time they see how supporters are happy, it's less stressful for them going to work. It's less stressful. That's why you see now Sundowns playing a 16-year-old. And when you look at Sundowns right this year, one of the things that I'm very happy with how things are is that as much as I'm critical, I would say I'm less critical right now because of seeing a lot of youngsters being in the first team and playing and making an impact. And now all of those youngsters are translating into playing for the national team.
Yep. Yeah, Brian, I think we are out of time, unfortunately. I think this is the first part of 2. I think we are going to have another chat with you. We still have to chat about Mamelodi Sundowns. We still have to chat about the national team, both youth, under 20s, under 23s, the first team as well. The experiences thereof, the sad part of not being, part of the 2010 World Cup. Okay. I think there's quite a lot that we still have to speak about. But from you, in closing, what is it that we can expect from you going forward, being involved in the game and being involved in football?
There's a lot that's coming from me in football. I love the business side of football, and I see a lot of opportunities. I'll be launching some programs in the next maybe hopefully 2 months or even less. Including sometime this year, my own goalkeeper school. I don't want to call it academy. And there's some exciting projects on the line, including possibly doing something big with Jerry's Kosana's team, club, Hollywood Thunders, Mbisa. But I think all of that we can, definitely. I would love to come back and elaborate more. I'm still involved in the game, but more on personal projects, and that I would love to see.
Yeah, unfortunately there was a bit of load shedding there, but we're back anyway. But we're closing it. Brian Baloyi, he was telling us in regards to his personal projects and what he'll be doing in the next couple of weeks, months as well, in relation to football. Brian Baloyi, this is where we ended it. It's 5 minutes after 2 o'clock. Yep. Utmost apologies for running over time, but thank you so much for your time. We truly appreciate it, and what a pleasure, what an absolute pleasure it was to have you here with us. And we look forward to possibly at least in the next 2-3 weeks, so that we can really have an extensive chat in regards to Sundowns, the national teams as well. But thank you so much for your time. We truly do appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Yeah, maybe when I come back, and we'll talk about my foundation as well, the work I do with the foundation. Next week we're donating school shoes in Alex. And I think when I come back, we'll talk about that a little bit more as well.
Absolutely. Well, that's where we ended the big chat with myself, SK Pasha. It is a Wednesday, the 15th of March, 2023, 6 minutes after 2 o'clock. We come back next week with another guest. And then after that, I think we should bring back Brian Baloyi. What an absolute jam. He's also spoken about the bag. There was nothing untoward in that bag. A beautiful bag as well. Well, goodness me, that's that. We're back again next week. Thank you.